Hello and welcome to the Money Mindful Virtual Book Club. Let me just adjust my screen a little bit here while we're just waiting for people to come on. It is Tuesday night. It's 8:30. It's the Money Mindful Book Club. I am your host, Megan Jean Smith. And tonight we will be discussing Wonder Woman's Guide to Money by Natasha Janssens. We're actually really lucky tonight because Natasha is going to be joining us. So we'll be inviting her in a few minutes when everybody's on. I can see that there's a couple of people joining now. So if you're joining, post a hello in the comments so we know that you're here, and just let me know if you can hear me and see me. I'm using a fancy streaming service tonight. So Emily, hi, great. So good to see you here. Fantastic. Oh, and I can actually see who's posting and see the full comment. So yay for that. I'm just getting... Nikki, hello, hi, great to have you here. Awesome. Nidhi, welcome. Good evening to you too. Okay, so I'm not sure who else is with us here tonight, but if you are just joining in, as you can see on the beautiful banner, this is the Money Mindful Book Club. I'm your host, Megan Jean Smith. And tonight we are discussing the book Wonder Woman's Guide to Money by Natasha Janssens. And Natasha is waiting in the studio, so to speak, to join us. So can't wait for that. So I just wanted to just have a little talk while we're waiting for some more people to come in about for me, I think the most important points when it comes to money is, first of all, our mindset, and then second of all, the education about money. You know, we really need to be educated about money. We want to feel confident about money and how to use money. And so that's what this book club is all about. It's about creating the space for us to be able to just liaise with other women, talk about women. Well, we could talk about women, but we're actually going to talk about the book. But talking about money and our thoughts about it, what we do with it, and what we can learn to be able to manage our money better. So who else is joining us? If you're on, come and say hi. Say hi if you are watching, so I can see that there's a few of you here. All right, so how to get the most out of book club tonight. Join in. Yeah, be a part of it. So when we're asking questions, writes, comments. Hello, Laurel. And you've said, I love the interview. So I'm assuming that you've listened to the interview with Natasha. Fantastic. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So join in. So, yes, thank you, everyone who's joining in and making comments so far. Your perspective matters, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinion about the book. We want to hear your opinion about money. And we just ask that everybody is kind and respectful of different opinions, because we get to have our own opinions. You know, that's the beauty of life and being human. I was going to say there's no such thing as a silly question, but there are silly questions, but silly questions are welcome here, all right? We're allowed silly questions in this space. No problem with that at all. All righty, so let's just hear, is anybody here for the first time? Give us a little thumbs up, or just say a little hi to us if this is your first time joining us, because this is our second book club meeting, and I can see some familiar faces here, which is really fantastic, but it would be great to find out, is anybody here new tonight? Maybe that's Nikki, first time for you. Awesome. Yes. And Nikki, I think I recognize your name from Instagram from your account. I'm thinking that you're the same person. Akuya, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. And hello, first timer, welcome. All right, so I think let's start getting into a couple of the questions before we bring Natasha on. First of all, oh, that is you. Yes, Nikki, great, awesome. And Anne, hello, fantastic, welcome. All right, so first question is always, did you read the book? Because we know that not everyone always reads the book, and that is totally fine. You don't have to have read the book to join in book club. It is not mandatory. There's plenty that can be learnt from being here. So just write in the comments, did you, have you read the book rather? And also what I'd love to know is, where are you reading the book? Like, where are you getting the book from? Are you reading it as an audio book? Is it available as an audio book? I'm not even sure. I didn't check that because I've got the hard copy. Have you got it from the library? Did you borrow it from a friend? Emily says, didn't read this one, library's closed just before I was going to pick up my copy. Yeah, that's been a bit of an issue, hasn't it? But I did mention recently on Instagram that a lot of libraries are connected with services such as BorrowBox, I think is the one that I'm currently connected to, where you can borrow the book through the library, but you can actually get a digital copy. So have a look into that if you are a member of your libraries. Nikki says, I haven't read it, but it's in my Amazon shopping cart along with Spenditude. Yes, awesome. Nikki, get it. This is worth it, definitely. Anne says, I've just purchased on Kindle up to chapter 2. Great. I know somebody else who I was speaking to who's also reading it on Kindle. So that sounds like a popular choice. Nidhi, yes, I read it as an ebook. Really enjoyed the book. A great, informative and interesting read. I like how Natasha conveyed so much information while keeping it light. Yeah, I agree. Me too. I thought she gets into the information that we need to know, but it's also enjoyable and relatable, if you ask me. So I think this is probably a great time to get Natasha on. Let's invite her on. If you haven't listened to the interview that I did with Natasha on the Money Mindful podcast, that was last week. It was episode 25. Get onto it. She shared so much practical information about how you can manage your money, how you can get into managing, your money better if you're a beginner at it, and lots of handy tips with really practical stuff like superannuation and estate planning and things like that. But I'm going to stop talking about all of this and let's get Natasha on here. So I'm getting really high tech here, and Natasha, welcome.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Let's hear. Can someone write in the comments if they can hear Natasha? And I hope you can still hear me. I know that I'm not on the screen, but
well, no, I can hear you, but we'll see about everyone else.
Yeah, I know there's a bit of a slight delay, so we have to wait a few seconds for when the comments come in. But while we're, yes, they can hear, yes, yay! Okay, great. So Natasha, for those listening who maybe haven't had a chance to listen to the interview that we did, could you give us a little brief introduction into who you are and what you do? Because you do so much.
I do. So I'm a self-confessed finance fanatic. I'm a licensed accountant, mortgage broker and financial advisor. And the main reason that I do all that is so that I could run my business called Women with Sense, which is basically your one-stop shop for everything that you want to know and learn about how to be better with managing your money. Now, despite my accent, I'm actually not a true blue in the truest sense of the words. I migrated to Australia when I was 18, about 20 years ago now, as a refugee, and I came here. Circumstances were such that I came here without my family, so I had to learn really quickly about, financial systems in Australia, and I ended up building my life up, from scratch, from the ground up, as they say. And along the way, I had so many aha moments and so many moments of, why doesn't anyone tell this stuff? I mean, why, if I had known this stuff before, I would have done so much better. And so I thought, well, okay, someone needs to be sharing this stuff. And so I started Women with Sense, is the short version of it, really.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to bring myself on here to join you. I think we can do this like this. There we go. There we go. First of all, I just wanted to let everyone know, if you have a question for Natasha, please put it in the comments, because Natasha has said that she's more than happy to answer questions, and it's pretty, it's a treat having her here with us to be able to answer the questions directly if you've got something that you has got you thinking in the book. But I wanted to cover, the book starts off with talking about, and I mentioned briefly before that, two factors when it comes to money: mindset, and then the actual education with how we, what we know about money and what we learn. And you talk about rejecting these old paradigms, and a couple that you give is, I'm not good with money, or I don't have time. And I'm interested to hear from our group, do you have some of these common money blocks? I mean, do you have some of these old beliefs hanging around that that get in the way? Like somebody said to me recently on one of the Facebook posts that money is scary, and so we have these thoughts about money that are not often helpful. But on the other hand, maybe you have thoughts about money that are helpful, and we'd love to hear those too. So Natasha, what do you think is a common factor with lack of confidence when it comes to money, or things that get in the way?
Look, I think it starts off really early. I shared in the book where, for a long time, I struggled to understand why women in particular were having more of these sort of money blocks and beliefs about lack of time and not being good. And it wasn't really, I'm fortunate to have a son and a daughter. And it wasn't until, I was at a cafe with my little girl that I realized just the different language that people used with her versus the language that they used with my son. And that opened my eyes to just how early some of that conditioning begins, that, girls are spenders and we're not good with money, and, and all that sort of stuff. And so we start to, over time, when you're told that enough times, you start to believe that and see that as the truth. And that can form so much of how you go on to manage money as an adult and how you go on to feel about your own skill sets. So yeah, that came to me as a real shock to sort of realize the extent of that subconscious bias. And I'm sure we've all seen examples of it now that we sort of stop to think about it and really have a look at how we talk to boys versus girls.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so, I mean, I just think of how my girls wear pink and purple all the time. And we don't even buy them pink clothes. I don't even know how that happened, but they're just so attracted to those things. And I think it's just, there's a lot of unconscious thinking that goes on that we have, and we need to create awareness around it, because that's the starting point. Once you're aware, then you can make moves from there. So Emily says, I don't have any of those blocks anymore. Yes, Emily, go you. But I used to think I couldn't access money, or there wasn't enough in the world for me to have a lot of money. Okay, I'm just going to make a comment here, and I want to see what you think of this, Natasha. And I'd love to hear what the group thinks about this, is that there's not a finite amount of money in the world. It's not like there's a cake and, somebody gets a serving of money and it takes it away from somebody else. I mean, that's what I believe. Like, I feel like just because somebody else has money doesn't mean that another person has to have less money.
Yeah.
Like this distribution of wealth. And yeah, I'm really curious. What do you think about that? What do you think, Natasha?
You can also start having, what we call that sort of group sort of consciousness, where you're sort of looking at the collective and you're absorbing those beliefs. And often those can also come from families and generations. If I have a look at my family, which, for a long time, I didn't even recognize that, I was the first person to go to university and I was the first person to have a corporate job. We were sort of, my grandmother was a seamstress, my grandfather worked at the railway, and my cousins and sort of wider family sort of were all, laborers and tradies. And I realized that even just that family belief around where we sit in the social class system, and that whole, that, well, we are poor, like wealth isn't for us, success isn't for us, like that's other families, our family, this is where we are in the pyramid scheme and that sort of stuff, in the food pyramid or whatever way you want to look at it. So you have a lot of that as well that will influence how you think and feel about money. And so that's why, as you said, it's so important to create that conscious awareness, because when we're conscious about money, when we're aware of what our thoughts are and our beliefs are and how we respond to certain events, then you can start to overwrite that natural or trained or conditioned instinct and start to sort of, take action that's more aligned with where you want to go. An example that I often give is, how many times have you driven a car and then suddenly gone on autopilot? Right? So that's suddenly now your subconscious mind is at the wheel. And I had this happen to me once where I was going to a meeting and I knew where I was going. I know Canberra like the back of my hand, so I didn't need the GPS. And as much as consciously I knew where I had to go and the turns I had to make, because I was so busy thinking about the meeting and, and I was on autopilot, my subconscious took control of the wheel. And so when my conscious mind was nowhere to be found, my subconscious went the way that I go 9 times out of 10, which is in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go. And I love that as a very simple analogy to the relationship between our conscious and our subconscious thoughts. And that, it's not enough to know, well, I have this financial plan or I have these goals and I want to create this wealth. Because if you don't uncover what's happening for you subconsciously, you'll end up driving in the other direction regardless.
Yeah, 100%. What does the group think about this? Because it actually takes more effort to think deliberately about what you want to create and making decisions. And I love, I'll just check my notes here. You said on page 25, you put a little quote in that said, it's not about the cards you're dealt, but how you play the hand. And I think you just gave us a great example there, because you've made change in your family with how you manage your money and your ideas about money, I guess, and how you create it and manage it for yourself, which would have taken effort to do something different than the norm of what you grew up with.
Absolutely. And if it wasn't for that mantra, I wouldn't be in Australia. I wouldn't have the life that I live, because I would have bought into, well, this is what our financial circumstances allow us. And they don't allow me to live and study in Australia. It's never going to happen. So by letting go of that and going, well, okay, what skills do I have? What resources do I have? What are things within my power that I can do to and play the game better, because it is a money game really that we're living. Then, you can start to open up so many different doors.
Yeah, so Allah has written here, this is my first time reading, oh, hang on, it's just jumped. Where's it gone? This is my first time reading a book about finance, trying to increase my consciousness. Yes, I'm keen to invest, but have much more to learn. And this book is a great start. And that's right. Investing is such a learning process, don't you think? I mean, you sort of can start with, I was actually just writing a outline for a podcast today where I was talking about how I started doing one aspect of investing in property, and then now as I'm learning more and I'm learning more about shares, and now I'm thinking, actually, I think I'm more interested in shares and this is making more sense. But you have to make a start. You've got to make a start somewhere, and just try. But yeah, the first port of call, I think, absolutely is doing things like reading. Oh, now where am I? This is so weird. For those of you watching, this is like a mirror image, and that's why it might look weird where I'm looking, because I'm sort of looking at Natasha and it's a different direction. Anyway, it's all good. All right, let's read some more comments here. And don't forget that you can ask questions. So if you've got a question for Natasha, please type it in the comments and we will answer that for you. So Emily says, I agree. I use automatic savings and financial systems, etc., to help guide my subconscious in the right direction. Yes, and Nikki says, yes, automation is so key. And I think this would be a great point to, I know we talked about this on the podcast, Natasha, and you actually mentioned it in the book, but I didn't even remember it until I went back and flipped through. But I think, do you want to just give a really quick summary of what bill smoothing is? Because that was just like such a, like a real aha moment for me when you explained that.
It's one of those things that technology enables us now to do that I don't think enough people are taking advantage of. And it really just takes away that admin burden of having to remember when to pay bills and of making it really tricky and time consuming to budget. So all bill smoothing is taking all of your bills that you have, so your energy bills, your rates, your utilities, your insurances, all that sort of stuff, contacting the provider. So it takes the, admin off you, contacting the provider and arranging to go on a fortnightly or a monthly payment plan. So that way, instead of having to pay bills in lots of different times, you've got that annual bill, you've got the stuff that comes in quarterly and the stuff that comes bi-monthly, and it starts to become hard to track sort of what is due when. This way, you just even it all out. So they calculate, what it is for the year, and then you just have a fortnightly or monthly direct debit. It's done for you. Your bills are paid on time. There's no late fees. In fact, even with your energy bills, a lot of the providers will offer you an on-time payment discount. So they're further encouraging you to go and do that. It really turned things around for us and made life so much easier.
I'd love to know from the group if there's any foundations that you've laid, so things that you do that make your life financially easier, because for sure there'll be someone else in the group who doesn't do what you're doing, and it would be really great to hear from you. But in the meantime, I just want to read a couple of comments. So Nikki says, I finally entered the stock market a couple of months before COVID. However, I am not bothered as I'm committed to long-term growth. Yes, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that because, yes, the stock prices have gone down, but it's all about why are you getting those stocks in the first place? Because if it's for a long-term investment or if it's for income from dividends, it doesn't matter if the stock price goes down. It only matters if you're going to sell. So I'm so relieved, Nikki, that you think that way. Emily says, it's so addictive, Nico. Oh, you guys must be friends, I'm guessing, and the market will go back up before you know it. Yeah. Yes, I love the bill smoothing term. I have actually been doing this for a few years now. Nikki, good on you. Where have you been? Why didn't you tell me about this ages ago? I automate, oh, you've just jumped. I automate everything, including annual rates, electricity, etc. Fantastic. Okay, so Nidhi says, automation saves a lot of time. Our bills are automated, though I like to make manual savings to different savings accounts allocated for different sections, as that gives me happiness and I feel grateful when I do that. Yeah, I like that, different savings accounts. I do that too, actually. I can't keep track of it when it's in the same account. It's got to be separated. Does anyone else have that issue? Okay, so Ella has a question, and I will put it up. I think I can actually show this. Guys, I'm going to try and get technical here. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let's give it a go. Ha! Ella says, do you think it's a good time to invest long-term while stocks are down?
This is such a popular question, and there's so many people that are wanting to invest but are now going, oh, maybe we sort of stop and wait until this whole situation is over. Now, when you think about it, the whole theory behind investing, if we all had the power of, predicting the future, we would say, okay, the share market, will go like that. And ideally, in order to make money, you want to buy at the bottom and you want to sell at the top. So what we're at now, and we'll never know when we reach the bottom, really. Okay, this where we are now could be the bottom. It could, continue to tank for a while further. You'll never know, with the exception of hindsight, when you're at the bottom. But what I find fascinating is, again, that's that human psychology aspect of it, that people are right now, even though the theory says now's the time when you should be buying, everyone is scared. They'd rather wait for when the times are good, which is when you're more likely to pay more, and shares might be overpriced because everyone is confident and everyone's going in and buying. So I think absolutely now is the time, but you want to stick to the main rules. You want to make sure, first of all, that you have a good saving buffer, that you've gotten rid of credit card debt, all that sort of stuff, and that you're diversifying, because while share markets have had their ups and downs over the years, the nature of this particular sort of pandemic and everything that's going on is a little bit different. So it makes it that much more important to make sure that you have really well and truly diversified, because it's going to be a little bit hard to look at, all of the knock-on effects as to which companies will be affected more than others, which sectors are being affected more than others, and how the various sectors, companies, and markets are going to bounce back. So when I talk about diversification, I'm talking about making sure that you're investing not just in shares, but having money in other places as well, but also investing in shares not just in Australia, but in countries overseas. Because as we've seen, the pandemic has moved at different paces as well. So really important. That's the long answer to, in short, yes, just make sure that you're careful about how you do it and be prepared that, it may take a few years for the shares to bounce back. So if you're not counting on that money on anything, then I reckon go for it.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that you make there. I noticed, and it's funny because you don't see a lot of this talk in the media. Like, I see a lot of talk about fear that the markets have dropped, but I was looking at, I won't get into the specifics but I was looking at a particular stock that I remember the price that it was 20 years ago. And I often just have a look at it every now and again. I don't tend to buy just individual stocks. But this one kind of blue chip one dropped like dramatically in price, and their business hasn't suddenly dropped. They're still totally in business, right? But their share price has dropped, and I felt like a kid in a candy store. It was a bit like I was saying to Louis, we really need to buy some of these stocks. Like, I have never seen them this cheap before. And it's just a different way of looking at it. I think it's like the clothes in the shop have gone on sale. But but I know I'm getting a bit like lightheaded over here, but grounded, Natasha, there is more things involved with it. But markets go up and they go down, and right now they're down, and stocks are much cheaper.
Time to enter. Certainly a better time to enter than it was a few months ago.
Yeah.
Look at what your portfolio would be now. Which, again, doesn't matter if you've done this for, the next 10 or 20 years. And again, that's where the psychology of it is so fascinating, because, we do these financial plans with clients where we say, okay, well, we understand that there's going to be periods of like potentially years where the markets have gone down and it'll take a while to recover. And people go, yeah, that's all fine. And then those are the exact same people that are going, should we be selling now? Should we be moving everything to cash? What are we going? It's like, all right, do you remember the conversation that we had when you were starting to invest? Okay, that hasn't changed. We knew this was going to happen. We didn't know when, we didn't know what was going to cause it, but we knew this was going to happen. So just sit tight and don't panic. But as you say, it's all that's in the media, because let's face it, the scary headlines is what sells. That's what gets us curious. We don't, hearing that someone made a lot of money doesn't really make people happy to read the news. But hearing that someone else has lost money, or there's, that's sort of, it's like, you know, watching a soap opera or something. It's like, oh, there's drama. What's going on? So yeah, just don't listen to the headlines is the main thing. And if you're buying shares based on what you read in the paper, then in my opinion, you're buying too late. And that's not the way I would be going about picking stocks.
Yeah, good point. So I'm just going to get onto the comments again. So going back to foundations, Emily says, yes, she's got 10 savings accounts and counting. Yeah, that sounds like me, Emily. And might as well buy stocks while they're on sale. Yes, yeah, same sentiment. So Nidhi says, we entered the stock market a few months back for the first time in my life, and I'm not worried about what is happening with it as we are there for the long haul. Great. Which I hope will be a few decades at least. We did take the opportunity to invest a little more this month when it was a little, the price was lower to buy. Yeah. This is good. So Nikki has got a question. Let's put this up. And I think this might be a good time also, Natasha, to explain what are ETFs and what are LICs, because I think...
Well, and I'll be interested for those who read the book, whether they found I tried to simplify these concepts in the book by using, your wardrobe, your capsule wardrobe as an analogy, just to make it easier to follow all these terms. But essentially, Nikki, when you're looking at it, from my point of view, you first want to be deciding what it is you want to be investing in. So all an ETF and a licensed investment company they're two different tax structures for how those investments are purchased, and I liken it to, in very layman terms, very simplified, overly simplified terms, comparing buying clothes at DJs to buying clothes at Kmart, right? They're just structured in different ways. They're both doing the same sort of stuff. But what you might find is that at a licensed investment company, you might be able to buy shares for a smaller dollar value than what you would at an ETF. But by the same token, you're getting a smaller slice of those shares as well. So same sort of thing. You can buy at Kmart, a top for $5. You can go and buy another one for $200. The quality will be different. What you get for that $3 versus the $200 will be different. So I think doing a combination of everything, I think first of all, having an underlying investment strategy, like what is it that you want to be buying, what investments, what sectors, and then going, okay, who's offering that? Because what you'll find is with exchange traded funds or the ETFs, they're often more passively invested, and you have a greater level of transparency as well of where your money has gone. Licensed investment companies will often be a little bit more what we call actively managed, where, there's people there that are researching and trying to see what they can do to better the market. So again, it comes back to, well, are you an active or a passive investor? And what do you want? So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing just one or the other. I think certainly doing a combination, but understanding what those companies are investing in is important for you.
Great. And we've got another question here. And it'd be great to hear from what the group thinks as well on this one. This is, what are your thoughts on the FIRE community? I've seen around the place living extremely frugally for a period of time to be completely debt and mortgage free for the rest of your life. Do you think it's worth it?
I think that's a question only you can answer, because we all have different values. From my point of view, I sort of think, well, you're going to be bored retiring at 35 or 40 after a while, so really what's the plan after that? Because hopefully you'll be alive for another 50 years. I prefer to, just have a really clear goal as to what I'm working towards. And then, the FIRE movement can certainly motivate you as to how far you can take that frugality to speed up achieving that goal. But I'm not a FIRE convert as such. I like taking little bits and pieces out of everywhere and doing what works for me.
Yeah. What do other people think about this? I think it's because the debt-free community and the FIRE community, they're very strong. Like I see a lot of sort of information about it on social media. I'm a bit like Natasha in the sense that, I think it's great to be managing your money in a way that you can be putting money aside quickly, but I don't want to not be working. I know that that's sort of, a lot of people it seems to be not that fashionable, I think, to love your work and want to keep working. I mean, like maybe lots of people are in jobs that they don't enjoy, but I see work as such a place of giving value and being of service, and it's incredibly satisfying to my life. So I imagine that I'm going to be like a little old lady still working away, not because I have to work, because I have to make money, but because I love it. It's my life. It's being of service to others and getting the most out of this life. But also, you know, I'd like to go on amazing holidays and be in the Mediterranean or what have you as well. And I can see the appeal about saving a lot to be able to like spend some life in another exotic country. But yeah, it's not.
I think you have that balance. I'm certainly, you know, a fan of being mortgage free, because if you look at it, your rent or your mortgage, that takes the largest chunk out of your cash flow. And if you think about it, if you don't have that, that's what, 30, 40, 50 grand a year that you suddenly don't have to earn. Now you're opened up to being able to work part-time, to being able to do the job that you love but that pays you less and that sort of stuff. So I'm certainly not saying, you know, go and be, you know, have a mortgage for 30 years. And that's what I talk about in the book is, you know, certainly don't go and do that. But you want to be clear if you're doing the FIRE movement, why, and is it going to be sustainable, or are you just going to completely deprive yourself too much? And then, you know, it'll sort of undo your hard work. It's a bit like, from my point of view, it's a bit like dieting. And if you go sort of too hard on it, you'll then go, oh my God, I haven't had any of the stuff that I love. And then eventually you'll just sort of go and binge and just undo it. So, you know, I think you got to have balance. And I think you need to have a really clear and motivating reason of what you're doing and why. And then everything will fall into place. But certainly now you've got, mortgages are so cheap now. It would be a shame not to take advantage of that and to try and knock off more of that debt if you can.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read through some of the comments. Where are we at? Emily says, yes, I'd get bored after a while. Yeah, me too. And Ella says, might be better off using all the money you save to invest and create a passive income for yourself. Yeah, I like that. Nikki says, thought initially the FIRE movement is a great idea to pay down your biggest debt, usually a mortgage. Yeah, however, I don't believe I'd be able to live super frugally. And you know what, Nikki, like I think some people can and some people love that. And I'm like, good on you, go for it. Like I think it very much is a personal pursuit. Like if it's something that you love, do it. You know, it's like, what's that diet? Paleo, you know, it's like some people are like really into it and they're like, yes. And then others are like, no way, you know, it's not for me. Emily, oh, thank you, Emily. Yes, a beautiful outlook. Thank you. Nidhi says, FIRE movement is interesting in its own way, and I use it as a motivation to be financially savvy and keep my needs, wants in check, and ensuring that I am heading towards a secure retirement, whenever that may be. No rush as such. I'm enjoying work. Yeah. Yes, I like that. And Nidhi's got a question which I'll put up, and then I think we'll move on a bit. So what is your opinion on buying your own home versus renting? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I think, first of all, it depends on your situation, because if you have found a place that you want to settle down in and, you know this is where you're going to be, you know, certainly from that point of view, it can make sense to go and buy your own place. You know, it's easy. You don't have to be moving all the time. You can do whatever you want to it. You don't have to deal with 3 monthly, you know, god-awful inspections, and all that sort of stuff. And certainly, and what I find is that a lot of people fall into the trap of not looking at the whole picture and the whole strategy of how the home sort of fits into that puzzle. And all they do is they have a look at it and they go, okay, well, my mortgage repayment would be this and my, you know, rent is that. So, you know, it'd just be cheaper or be the same, but at least I'm now paying off my own home rather than renting. But what they forget to factor in is all the other costs around the edges. You know, the stamp duty that you have to pay, the agent fees when you're selling it, all that sort of stuff, which means that if you're not sure where you want to live and if you're not sure what line of work you want to be doing, and you may end up moving from Sydney to Melbourne to London to whatever, then you sort of go, well, in that case, it probably isn't going to make sense for me to go and buy my own place because it's going to cost me a lot of money to go and sell it in 2 years' time because I'm not sure where I want to be. So again, it always comes back to, you know, what is the aim of it? What's the strategy? Why would you be doing it? You know, regardless, even if you're renting, you then go, okay, well, we've just spoken about where you live is your biggest overhead. It's your biggest outlay. So then going, what's going to be the way that I can start to, you know, build up my savings or my passive income or whatever to get rid of that rent payment? Now, buying a house can be one way of doing it because you're paying off the principal and then eventually you'll be mortgage free. But renting and building up a passive income, as we discussed, you know, and having a share portfolio, starting up your business, that's another way. I know plenty of really successful business people who do not own their home because they know that the area that they want to live in, they'll actually get better value for money to go and rent there and then use the difference from their mortgage to actually go and invest it and grow in their business or have an investment portfolio or whatever. So don't think that I don't buy into the whole rent money is dead money. It all depends what you do with the rest of the money. A mortgage can be dead money as well if all you do is just go on interest-only periods and never pay it off.
And then there's rent vestors like myself, which is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Well, and that's exactly it, what we were talking about. If you don't have a mortgage, rent, but then do something. Now you can invest by having an investment property. You can invest by having a share portfolio. It doesn't matter. It's talking about what do you do with that difference.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, I wanted to talk about, so there was the 3 sections that you had in the book, which was basically laying the foundations, which we've covered. And then we've sort of talked about building your dream life. But then at the end of the book, and I find that these topics are always at the end of the book, Natasha. However, and I totally get it because they're the kind of boring stuff that we all go, oh, I don't want to deal with it. But it's protecting all our plans that we've outlaid. And I'm very curious to know, does anyone in the group, do you have insurances for income protection and things like that? Or do you have your estate planning done? Like, have you got a will and things like that? Because Natasha brings this up at the end of the book, but I just think it's something that often gets overlooked and is so important. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that, Natasha?
Yeah. Well, you know, we have been so conditioned that, you know, we need to insure our house. Well, you know, the bank demands that you do that. Mum and dad probably taught you need to insure your car. And no one has really spoken to us about going, well, hang on, I have all these great plans for the future, but what exactly do they hinge on? Do you know what? They hinge on my ability to continue working and earning the income. And if I can't work, then all of that stuff goes down the drain. So, you know, it's, as you said, it's an absolutely important part of your financial plan. I don't believe that you should be starting to invest or do anything until you build a buffer in your cash flow, so you have your emergency savings and you can afford to have income protection and those sorts of insurances, so that then, as we've spoken about, when you're investing, the whole aim of it is to be in control of when you sell. So if you don't have income protection, if you don't have a fallback plan to being too sick to work, to losing your job, to all the stuff that can happen in life, then you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to have to sell out of those investments. And Murphy's Law will tell you it'll be at the worst possible time. Imagine this situation now. You're in COVID, you've lost your job, all your money is in shares, and the share market has tanked. Do you really want to be selling now? No, you don't. But if you don't have a buffer, what are you going to do? So, yeah, That's the important part, and the life admin and the yucky stuff that we don't like to talk about. Getting your wills done, getting the important documents sorted. It's stuff that makes us uncomfortable. No one likes to think that tomorrow something might happen to me or someone I love, so we put it off. But having spoken to so many women who have lost a loved one and seeing the difference that it made to them and their family, to how they coped with that stress by having had the yucky backup plan, the yucky will, the yucky life insurance there, it's done so much for those families just to help make that stressful period that little bit more bearable and manageable.
I'm going to put this question up because I think it relates. Insurance is sorted, estate planning not so much. I find it so daunting to start. Yeah, just like anything else. I know how important it is. Any tips on how to start?
Okay. Ask your friends or ask the Women with Sense group and just book an appointment with a solicitor. I'm not a fan of DIY and will kits and templates and that sort of stuff because you don't know what you don't know. I had one lady who said to me when she read my book was when she realized that their wills were invalid because they didn't know that they couldn't witness each other's signatures. So you can have all that sort of stuff. So I reckon it's actually, we overthink it. Just book an appointment with a solicitor and they'll walk you through it. It's really not that bad.
I actually have a whole episode on it earlier on in the piece. It'll be in one of the episodes from 1 to 13 on the podcast where I talk all about, it's called something like Estate Planning is Fun, Said No One. And I talk about my whole journey of what we did when we got our affairs in order and how painful it was. I mean, I kind of lay it out, like what the real experience was like and what we did. But we did exactly what Natasha just said. We went and we saw a solicitor who specialised in estate planning. We had a consultation with them first. I don't know if that's what you call it, but was it Nikki who asked, somebody just asked let me just quickly read. Oh, yeah. So they, Nidhi, when we went and saw the solicitor, they explained all the differences between trusts and what all that is and whether you need it or not. And I think, personally, I think you should talk to the experts about that because there are like a whole heap of intricacies with it that's the kind of thing you don't want to stuff up. So as much as I talk a lot on the podcast, I think about, you don't have to be a financial advisor to understand money, certainly not. But there's certain things where you do go and see people like Natasha, like when you've got an accounting issue when you're buying a property and it's to do with taxation or something, you want to be sure about that information, right? And it's just like the stuff with a will. Like, we are women, we're awesome. Like a lot of us, we've had kids. Come on, we can do anything, we've had kids. But there's certain things where I think you get to a point where it's like, unless you want to be a professional accountant or lawyer and you're going down that path, that's when there's like you find out the basic information yourself and you take action. And then when you're going to take the next level, you seek expert advice. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, I don't know, Natasha, what do you think?
No, absolutely. And the other thing is estate planning is more than doing the will. So the will is just one piece of it. A lot of the estate planning is, we talk about making sure that, the right assets go to the right people, and timing is a big thing. So if you're someone who has, teenage children, if there's someone that, has a particular medical issue or a addiction issue or something like that, then, really thinking about the flow of that money and going, when is going to be the right time for that person to receive it. But also, I know a lot of the audience, are likely to be younger, but what's important is we've all got older parents. So starting to talk to our parents about their estate plan and going, okay, first of all, because chances are you're going to have to deal with that at some point. You need to know what's in place and where the paperwork is. But also to make your parents aware, especially, if there's going to be adult children that are inheriting super and other assets, there's tax implications there. And there's actually things that can be done, to take advantage of tax minimization strategies and loopholes and things like that. So from that point of view, it's really important to get your parents to go and get advice both from their solicitor and their financial advisor, or their accountant, just to make sure that they're aware of what the implications are, and are there things that can be done to make sure that your inheritance doesn't get, eaten away by tax.
All right, well, just before we announce the book giveaway winners, I forgot to say at the start that we were announcing that. Let's just wrap up by, I want to hear from everybody. So just like last month, and if you're here for the first time, we don't let you off easy in book club. This is not about passive entertainment, learning, just reading. We apply what we learn. So I want to know one thing that you learned from the book. And I just wrote a few questions here. So I said, was there something that made you think differently? Or is there something that you're going to change after reading the book? Or what's your biggest takeaway? Okay, so what's one thing that you've learned? What's your biggest takeaway? And then you know what's coming. I'm going to ask you, what are you going to apply? So which thing are you going to do? And I think I'm just going to have a look through the comments because I think somebody might have already just said something. I'm sending an email to our solicitors after this live ends. Actionable baby steps. Yes, Nikki, awesome. Yes, take action. I love the advice in regards to our parents. Yeah. Nidhi says, thank you, Natasha. It helps to understand a bit more. We'll schedule an appointment with the solicitor. Yeah, definitely professional advice on this one, guys. Expert advice all the way. I just want to check that I haven't missed any comments here. Oh, Emily said, I just went to see a solicitor with my husband, told them what we wanted, and it was so easy. Oh, I'm so glad, Emily. I didn't find it so easy in terms of deciding on who all the executors and all that sort of thing would be. Okay, let's have a look. So Emily says, I'm going to consider rent vesting when we next relocate. And I think bill smoothing is a great idea. I'll be changing a few over. Awesome, Emily. Alice says, I learned what a difference salary sacrificing to my super can make to my retirement. Oh my gosh, yes. Even just a few extra, $20, $50 a paycheck makes a huge difference. Good on you, Ella. Nidhi says, for me, it would be estate planning and also to follow through the financial plan. Yeah. Follow through is important. That's where we have to apply. Like, I'm telling you, I have read like a lot of books like this. Where am I going? Hang on. I have read a lot of books like this, and every time I take something new from it. And I think that's the thing. It's like, you don't need to read a book like this and just be like, I have to change everything in my whole life and there's so many things I have to do and get overwhelmed. If this is the first book, like Ella was saying, this was kind of one of the first books like this that she's read, you're not expected to, there's not an exam on this. You can just take one thing. Like, and your one thing, Ella, is that you are now salary sacrificing and you've learned about that. Boom, awesome. You've just changed your financial destiny. And then you pick up the book at another time and you read another chapter and you learn something else. Or you get another book and you learn from that book. It's a process. We don't change overnight. Laurel says, bill smoothing, a great idea to apply. Yes, love it. Anne says, I will line up my bills tomorrow and ring the I'm not sure what that means, CO up to arrange. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, we better announce the winners of the books. I'll just take this comment off. Natasha is generously giving away 2 copies. And I went through yesterday after 12 o'clock and wrote down everybody and picked 2 out randomly. And they are, I've got them written here. I'm just going to do a little drum roll again because very high tech here. The books go to Brunch and Goals. So I think it was Akura, I think from the, I'm not sure if that's their name because I looked on their profile. Did someone come on earlier by that name? I feel like at the start. Are you here, Brunch and Goals? I feel like somebody came on at the start with that name. I don't know, maybe I might have made a mistake. I'm not sure. And I'm so stoked that you're here, Nikki, because Nikki MC4, you are also the winner of one of these books. Yay! Oh, that's cool, because when you came on at the start, I was like, I think this is the person. So that is awesome. I will DM you guys on Instagram about this to get all your details about this later. So by tomorrow. I think probably now is a good time to say thank you very much, Natasha, for joining us. It has been so great to have you here as a resource to be able to ask questions, and it's fun not to be here on my own too, like virtually, like visually. I wish I could bring all you guys on, like a Zoom meeting.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for reading the book, and thank you for joining us tonight. And Megan, thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. So stick around, guys, just for another minute or so. I want to let you know, moving forward to next month, I made an announcement on Instagram. We are going to be reading Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. Now, this book isn't a money book, so to speak, but it's all about mindset and about the fact that everything is figureoutable, and it gives us really practical steps we can take to adapt to that way of thinking. And I think with everything that's been happening in the world, we could really do with a dose of everything is figureoutable right now, because we need to figure out new ways to do things. And I think this is such a powerful mindset to have just in life in general. So this is our book for next month. You can, I'm sure you guys can get it on Kindle, which, because I've seen this book everywhere. You can also get it through the Money Mindful website on the book club link, and also in the resources section on the website. And if you want to know anything to do with book club, when it's happening, the best thing to do is go to the website, because I add everything to it. I put this live on the website on the page, like on the book page. I add this live to it. I add the podcast. Any notes about it are all in the one spot on the Money Mindful podcast website, rather. And also subscribe to the Money Mindful newsletter, because I remind people about it. And if you want to stay up to date with what is happening, that's where I send information out. So that's good to get onto that. Is there anything else I wanted to tell you before we ended the show? I think that's it, guys. I'm so thrilled to have had another evening with you. Thank you for joining in again for another month of book club. Please let me know. I know there's a slight delay, so it might not come up while I'm live, but you can also DM me or message me here on Facebook or DM me on Instagram. I would love to know what you want to get out of book club moving forward. I plan very far in advance. I have little kids, and so things are planned well ahead of time. But if there's books that you are interested in, or you would like to have a say in what books are in book club, covered in book club, I am all ears. I am totally open to your suggestions. I'm at your service. This book club is for you. So if there are particular genres or types of books, to do with money and mindset, because that's what the book club's about, that you want to hear about, I've got some in mind that I'd like to bring in throughout the rest of the year, but I'm totally open to bringing in books that you want to hear about. Okay, so I can see some comments coming up. Thank you, Nidhi. Oh, you're welcome. I love that you are part of this book club. Really enjoying having Natasha on the show. Yes, Emily. Yes, I love it that I'm just going to break it to you now. I don't think I'll be getting Marie Forleo next month, but hey, you never know. We'll see. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you all again next month. Until then, happy reading. Good night.